A side event co-hosted by Shia Rights Watch, Sentinel Human Rights Defenders, and Free Muslim Association in Geneva discusses ways to enlighten the international community about the heavy repression by the Bahraini regime and its peaceful protesters. This event addresses various dimensions of the violation of international conventions by the Al Khalifa regime and seeks to find solutions to the ongoing crisis in the country. For more about this big event, let's listen to Mr. Mustafa Akhwand, head of SRW and one of the founders of this event.
In an event in Geneva, human rights activists from across the world gathered to discuss the most recent anti-human rights movements by both monarchies and terrorist groups. In this regard, Mr. Mustafa Akhwand, the representative of Shia Rights Watch, a human rights organization, has attended an event hosting human rights activists in Geneva. In his lecture, Mr. Akhwand referred to the human rights violations in the Middle East, especially the Shias in Bahrain, and demanded the international human rights organizations to take appropriate measures immediately.
Since early 2011, the Bahraini government has engaged in an unprecedented campaign to criminalize freedom of speech and expression, association, and assembly. In September 2012, the UPR report on Bahrain was welcomed, and the international community urged the government to implement fully the accepted recommendations of the Bahrain Independent Commission of Inquiry. Nevertheless, the government has continued its oppression and harassment, and there are now more people in the prison system than ever before, causing overcrowding, unsanitary conditions, and further inhuman treatment. Of greatest concern are the children who share the same fate as adults, accused and imprisoned on trumped-up charges to the extent that they are not dealt with in a manner that respects the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child in any way. They are forcibly taken from their homes, schools, or while at play, are physically brutalized and forced to become informants, and incarcerated in adult prisons as hostages to co-descend in a border family. The number of children currently detained in Bahraini adult prison facilities and without access to medical care or education has risen to more than 500. Elsewhere, police dogs are laid around inside classrooms, and tear gas has been used outside the schools at home time, which has caused panic and has an adverse health impact. Children have been shot at with tear gas canisters and peppered with shotgun bullets while at play in the street or when accompanying their parents on market stalls or elsewhere. Each of these abuses display total violation of the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, ratified by Bahrain in 1992. In an effort to encourage positive, productive engagement and appealing for international attention and pressure to address the situation in Bahrain, we aim to discuss strategies to hold the government of Bahrain accountable for denying the rights of children, demand to take practical steps to address the concerns reflected in the UPR debate, and most urgently to immediately release all children and youth held in custody under false allegations. Youth charged of criminal offenses should be provided legal and other appropriate assistance as prescribed by the UNCRC. This event lends us the exceptional challenge to examine the destructive effect of the criminalization of children in Bahrain and will tackle crucial matters of international concern around the Bahraini government's attitude towards the children of families whose allegiance is under suspicion.